did it. What's up, everybody? Happy, what is this, June 25th? I cannot believe it is almost July. We are halfway through the year. This is insane. But my name is Whitney. I am a GMAT GRE executive assessment instructor at Manhattan Prep, where I've been for a long time. I've been a full-time instructor here since 2010. Lots happening this year, 2023. We've got a lot of stuff happening with switchovers on all of the exams. So we've got the GRE switching, we've got the GMAT switching, and that's coming this fall. And so what I wanted to talk about this evening was something that you can use on the old or the new GMAT, either one of those things. I'm going to kind of keep going with a theme that I started a couple of months ago. So if you've been coming to my free prep hours, I've been doing a lot on data and working with thinking about how to deal with graphs. Well, we're going to keep going in the world of data. And tonight we're going to focus on a section that is what will be called the data insights section. So on the new GMAT focus that'll roll out this fall, the GMAT or the data insights section will have a bunch of the questions from integrated reasoning, but also include data sufficiency. On the current GMAT, you still will see this two-part analysis question that we're going to do tonight. It would just be part of your integrated reasoning section for the next 6 to 7 months or so. But again, I'm sort of excited that this is what we're going to talk about tonight. We'll sort of talk about how this type of question works, and we're going to go through 5 pretty tricky example problems. So excited to do those together. So a little bit of a summary about the data insight section. So on the GMAT focus, so the new edition that'll be going live in fall of 2023, the GMAT focus edition is going to involve the 4 question types that are currently a part of integrated reasoning. So these are currently the IR section, graphics interpretation, that I've been talking about on the last few free prep hours, the 2-part analysis questions that we're going to talk about tonight. We've got table analysis, we've got multi-source reasoning, and then the data insight section is going to pull the data sufficiency from what is currently part of the quant section of the current legacy, if you will, GMAT edition that will be retired in the spring of 2024. So tonight's plan, we are going to focus on this 2-part analysis question. So a little bit about 2-part analysis. So all of this, data insights or integrated reasoning, however you look at it, the point of these questions is to mix a lot of information that is both verbal and qualitative and quantitative, and smash them into one question. That's especially true for things like multi-source reasoning, and even to some degree tables. So 2-part is kind of interesting because the 2-part family of questions are the most like traditional multiple choice in that they're much more type specific. So when we start to look at this idea of table analysis, right? What we've got when we have table analysis questions is that, not table analysis, excuse me, 2-part analysis questions, what we start to see is questions fitting into one of 3 categories. So they are really either very quantitative, meaning these are going to feel very much like problem solving multiple choice problems. There's also verbal, which is more like critical reasoning than like a reading comp, but these are going to be a little bit more like critical reasoning. Or we've got logic, which really doesn't appear anywhere else on the exam. And so it's kind of puzzly and kind of figuring out orders. But 2-part analysis are often like a single theme multiple choice. So you're doing something that feels very much like a story or a word problem. You're doing something that feels very much like a critical reasoning argument, or you're doing something that's one of these weird logic pieces. Now, generally speaking, it is a good idea to know which types of these questions, graphs, 2-parts, tables, multi-source, whatever, which of these are your strengths and which are your weaknesses. Because no matter what, right, no matter which version of the GMAT you're taking, there's never enough time to do every question completely, right? We always have to be ready to bail on things that seem like they're going to be too time consuming, or they're going to be exhausting, or that we're not all that great at, maybe aren't our strengths. So this is going to be just as true on GMAT Focus as it is on the current GMAT. And so part of our studies when we're trying to learn each section is deciding, what content areas, what types of questions are we not as strong on? And in those, can we be ready to bail if they look extra tough? So with two-part analysis, generally speaking, you'll see about 4 of these on the section, regardless of whether it's integrated reasoning or data insights. And so I would say that you can't really skip them completely. You can't say that 2-part is just I'm no good at any 2 parts. I can't do any of them, because 4 questions is just too many to completely bail on. But of only one type, meaning you can't skip anything else. But it is useful to start to get a sense of whether any one subtype of 2-part is particularly difficult for you. So as we work through tonight, I want you to consider that, right? All right, 2-part, we're going to study it, but are there any specific 2-part subtypes that maybe just aren't my bag, right? They're just not great for me. And so let's talk about the general structure of a 2-part. So the way 2-part works is that you'll be getting they call it 2-part, I should say. It's called 2-part because of kind of how everything shows up, how the table kind of shows up for you. So the way 2-part looks on the screen is going to be sort of, here's the shell of it. So you'll have the story up here at the top. So this will be your story, your problem, the text and the information will be up here. And that information might be verbally, it might be more quant heavy, it might be this logic style. You'll then have 2 questions. You'll be asked 2 questions about it. Question 1 and question 2. And those questions might be related to one another. They might be dependent on one another, or they might be 2 totally separate questions. So the text of the questions itself, so Q1 and Q2 will be up here kind of in this story problem information, but then you'll be asked to answer or respond about Q1 and Q2 in each column. So you can think of this as a multiple choice stacked on top of itself. So you'll have a layered multiple choice, and generally speaking, this will have 5 or 6 answer choices. Right. And so each multiple choice question will have 5 or 6 answer choices. Okay, so when you've got this, these answer choices off to the side will be the same for both. They'll be the exact same for both columns. And it is, in fact, possible that the correct answer for question 1 that you'll radio in, you'll be okay, this is the correct answer for question 1. This could also be the same correct answer for question 2. So it could be that the text that's over here on the right, these are going to be your, this is answer 1, answer 2 kind of thing, answer 3, right? And all the way down this side. All your little answers will be down this end for you, answer 4, answer 5, answer 6. And so they'll all be right here. Now, much like all of these multi-part questions, you have to get all of the parts right to get the question right. So if you, let's say, answered question 1 correctly, right, and you got that one right, but you answered you chose the wrong radio button in question 2, you get the whole problem wrong. So you lose credit for the whole thing. So it's all or nothing, which is really annoying, but at least it's just 2 parts. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to start to look at these individual questions. I'm going to give us a little more time than we would normally have for these. We're usually going to be thinking 2.5-ish minutes. But what I'd like to do with this problem is kind of take our time moving through it. Yeah. So let's look at this problem. So a couple of things we're going to chat before we jump in. Again, notice there's upfront information given. It is very text heavy, but the fact that the answer choices are numbers makes me think it's probably a quant problem. The individual questions themselves will have their own little blurb. Yeah. And so there are a couple of bits and pieces of language that we'll kind of identify, but I want you to give this one a try. You're going to read the upfront information. You're going to treat it like a regular old quant problem, right? And then pull in These will be, I'll give you the letters for them. Let's call these, A, B, C, D, E, F. And so you'll pull into me privately in the chat window, and you can just give me both letters at the same time, like AA or AF or right, whichever the case may be. So you'll just give me the two letters that you think it is when you think you've got it. Here you go. All right. So about 3 minutes. That's definitely longer than we want to spend, but I think it's a good chance to sort of practice with this first one. So a few things. It is definitely a math problem, right? Numbers in the answer choices kind of give that away. And I want to highlight some of the language here because this is something that happens predominantly on quant problems in two-part, but can happen on any type of problem. And it's this together are consistent. Now, jointly consistent or together are consistent is a clue that we are not going to be able to necessarily solve exactly. We might, but it also might be that we have to solve in such a way that it's like a relative amount that's true. Now it depends, right? So we'll see. So I just wanted to highlight this language. So we're going to treat this very much like we would treat any problem solving math problem. I'm going to take a look at the answers and first notice they're really spread out and they're nice clean integers. So that's kind of cool. As we go up to the problem, we have a story problem that we should probably work to visualize. So I'm going to make a little bit more room for us to work. So I'm going to hide some of this table for us for the time being. But here's what we have. We have two organizations. I have organization A and organization B. Organization A has a rate of, or has 1,050 people. Organization B has 1,550 people in it. And I know that these members are going to keep increasing over a certain period of time. And that these analysts predict that in 5 years, right? So 5 years later, whatever these two numbers, so this is like, 5 years later, whatever these two numbers are, they'll be equal. And that any time past that, quantity A or organization A would have more members. So here's what we definitely know. We know that organization A has to be growing faster than organization B. We just don't know how much faster. And we have to make up this, 550 or this 500 people over the course of these 5 years. So if we were to think of each of their rates, for example, if A was growing at a rate of X, or let's say A people per year, then they're going to get 5 A people, right? The number is increasing at its own rate. So they're going to get 5 A people over the course. So if it's like 20 people per year, it'll be 100 people. If it's 100 people per year, it's 500 people. Quantity B, they're going to get 5 times whatever the heck B is. Yeah, whatever the heck B is. And so one way we could think of this problem is 1050 plus 5A has to equal 1550 plus 5B. And we can start to simplify. Now, here's another cool thing about our data section is that we get a calculator. So we can use a calculator for a lot of this, but let's do a little kind of subtracting. I'm going to get my variables on one side, and I'm going to get my whole numbers on the other. So we'll take 5A on the left, and subtract 5B. On the right, I'll take my 1050 and subtract it. Here's my 500. And I'm going to divide everything by 5. So here's what I know. I know that A minus B is 100. But that's all I know, right? I can't solve for A and I can't solve for B. I just know that whatever the rate of A's growth is, it has to be 100 more than the rate of B's growth. And so I need 2 answer choices. This is where jointly consistent comes in. I need 2 answer choices that are 100 apart, where A is the big one. Now, you could have left the 5B on the other side if that makes you more comfortable. You might see this as A is equal to B plus 100, so whichever kind of variation you want to see. But what I know is that 10 doesn't have a 100 above match. Only 30 and 130 do. Those are the only 2 answers that are precisely 100 apart. And so now I just need to be really careful and make sure that A is B plus 100. So B is going to be our 30. And then, or organization B is going to be answer B. Organization A will be E, our 130. So the correct answer here would be E, comma, B. Now, you may have noticed, right? I even mentioned that, well, A has to make up this 500 over 5 years. And so you could also think of this as an increasing rate where quantity A, this organization A, has to make up 500 over 5 years or 100 and get straight to that value, right? So if you're comfortable with rates, you might have seen it as that and could have immediately gotten there. I'll say that it's good practice, though, to be able to set up, when you've got jointly consistent, set up the equation that you're going to maintain joint consistency in. Now, because in that way you get the exact sort of relationship between your 2 variables. Okay. All right. So let's stick in this world of quant for a moment. And again, let's think about, what do we know about problems, right? Like, what do we know about problems from our normal problem solving studying? So do either of y'all have any thoughts about what to do when a quant problem has variables in its answer choices? What do y'all think? What can we potentially do when we have variables in our answer choices? So I'll leave that as a clue. I'll get the timer going for us. and we'll take a look at how this question goes in just about 3 minutes. All right, let's see. I got some different guesses on this one. Oh, and let me give you the answer choice. Let me stop our little timer. Let me get you the letters again. I'm so sorry I took those off the screen for you. I didn't mean to. All right, here we go. There are answers. So I got a few different possibilities. I got a few different possibilities. Cool. So does anybody have an idea? What is it that we can do, or what's a method we can use when we have variables in our answer choices? Anybody have a thought that can sometimes make our lives easier? It's okay if not. Yeah. So if you've already done some of our lessons on picking numbers, when you have variables and answer choices, one of the things you can do for a quant problem is pick your own smart numbers. And so that's what I'm going to do for this explanation is talk about some smart numbers. I look at my answer choices. I've got the number 60 in them. So numbers that would go into 60 would be nice, but I don't want to copy the number 60. That doesn't sound great to me. And so what I'll do is try and pick numbers that are like kind of go into each other, but then would also go into 60 as I start to pick values for S and E. Yeah, and I also want to make sure that when I pick whatever S and E stand for, that I pick different numbers. Yeah, that I pick different numbers. So I've got a car, that under ideal driving conditions, it has a certain fuel economy, and when its driving speed is constant at this certain miles per hour. Okay, that's it. That's all we've been told, right? So I've got one measurement that is E kilometers per liter. So I might just say, all right, let's say it is 10 kilometers per liter. And driving speed, let's make it S kilometers per hour. Let's let driving speed be 20. It's a very slow vehicle. Kilometers per hour. Why? Because I see that I have fractions. So 10 and 20 would divide into each other pretty easily. 10 and 20 would also go into 60 pretty easily. I could also do 10 and 30. Those would go into each other pretty well, like depending on how they flip. And 10 and 30 would both go in to all these answer choices pretty well. I probably wouldn't do 20 and 30, or like 40 would be a weird number, or 50 would be a weird number with these 60s in here. But I'm just going to leave it at these nice, clean 10 and 20s. All right, and so in terms of these variables, we're looking for an expression. Great. And the first one is the number of liters of fuel. Okay, so I'm going to need liters of fuel. So the number of liters of fuel used in 1 hour of driving under these ideal conditions. Well, so 1 hour under ideal conditions would mean that I've gone 20 kilometers. And if I've gone 20 kilometers, I've used 2 liters of fuel because I used a liter for every 10. So 2 liters is my solution for 1 hour. Now, in order to find 2 liters, I have to replace all of my answer choices with this 10 and 20 that I chose and make sure that I don't get more than one that gives me the same number. So 20 over 10, 10 over 20, and then these are all the ones with 60 that aren't, I don't think you're going to give it to me, but 60 over 10, 60 over 20, 20 over 60, and 10 over 60. So I've got 2, a half, 6, 3, 1/3, and 1/6. So in 1 hour, I'll go 20 kilometers. And then after 20 kilometers, I'll have used up 2 liters. And so my first answer is A. All right, now I have to select the second one. I need to select the expression, whatever answer, that represents the number of liters of fuel used in a 60-kilometer drive under the ideal driving conditions. Well, actually, I don't even need to back up to this hours one because I already know the distance. If I go 60 kilometers, that's 6 liters, according to my story that I've invented. And so now I look for the answer that matches 6, and off I go. If you are not already actively practicing smart numbers when you see variables in your answer choices, I want to strongly encourage you, if you're watching this on YouTube, to look down and scroll through, and you'll look for our lessons on picking numbers and smart numbers and techniques for problem solving. But definitely consider that if I have variables in my answer choices, trying to manipulate a bunch of ratios can be kind of a pain. And so what we want to look for is ways to plug in. So I want to give you one more option to do this same kind of plugging in, because it's interesting how often, variables in the answer choices can come up. And I want to give you a doozy of a problem. So one more quant problem before we switch over to the other 2 types. So here you go. And again, about 3 minutes. Okay. Okay, so I've got a couple of answers in. I know this one's a little bit harder, but all right. I love it. I love it. All right, so we've got some information up front. Over a period of 5 academic years, from fall 99 to spring 2004, the number of faculty at a certain college increased despite a decrease in student enrollment. Okay, so student enrollment went down, well, fell from 5,500 students over a period of 5 years. So we've got these expressions down here. F and S represent some percent change in the number of faculty and students. And the R represents the number of students per faculty member in certain years, right? So we've got all these variables running around. I tend to ignore like the variables themselves and try to make sense of the story. They're also giving us a percent change formula, which is like new minus old over old, which great, that's kind, but we don't really need that, but here we are. So we want the expression that represents the number of faculty in fall 99 and an expression that represents the number of students per faculty member in 2004. Okay, so we've got this, I mean, like we've got a ton of stuff completely unknown, right? So I'm gonna start building out a little table. I'm gonna say, all right, here's 99 and here's 2004. Here's faculty, here's students. Okay, student enrollment is the one thing I know. It was 5,500. And I know that we've got some sort of decrease in enrollment between 99 and 2004. So we know that this 2004, F and S represent the percent changes of faculty and students. And so there's some number here. I don't know how many there are. They're going to decrease by some number or increase by some number for faculty and decrease by some number for students. Given that there's literally nothing given to us at all, we can absolutely just start picking any numbers for anything. Any numbers we want, which is really kind of nice. Yeah. So I'm going to let faculty be something really simple, like 100. So let's say if faculty is 100 and the number of faculty increased, let's pick an easy increase. Let's say it increased by 50%. So I'm going to take it up 50% to 150. Students are going to fall. Student enrollment is going to fall. I'll pick something simple again. So let's let student enrollment fall by something like, not the same number. I don't want to pick the exact same thing. So I'm just going to let it fall by like 10%. So if I let this fall by 10%, here's where I'm going to grab my calculator. Right? I know that 10%, I can just move my decimal point, right? But just to be sure, right, times 0.1, we're going to move it twice. I'm going to lose 550 students. So I'm going to take my 5,500 and minus 550 students. So I've got 4,950. Great. Right, so here's my number, 4,950. And now it says R represents the number of students per faculty member, right, in fall 99. So the number of students per faculty member, R, is 5,500 over faculty members, we'll call it 100. And so we'll kill these guys. So in this story, R is 55. F is 50, S is 10 in actual percents, right? The number. Percent change, like without a decimal, right? So 10%. Okay. What I got to figure out now is select the expression that represents the number of faculty in 1999. Well, I said that the number of faculty in 1999 is 100. So I need to figure out which one of these is 100, right? So is it 5,500 times R? No, that's way too big. 5,500 divided by R. which is 55. That would work, right? This one's 100. Or I'm going to go ahead and calculate these. This is 110 over, make that easier to see. This is 110 over 150. This is that same 110 over 150. These have minuses, by the way. So this is 110 over 150, 110 over 150 times, so I'll kill these off. This is 11 over 15 times 55. This is minusing the S, so that makes sense with a down. Those seem like a little bit more tempting to me. So this is 90 over 150 times 55. And then this one is 150 over 90. We'll kill the zeros times 55. And I can break out my calculator in a minute to calculate them if I need it. Okay, so the second I need is students per faculty member in spring of 2004. So students, 4950 per faculty member over 150. Well, I know it's going to be a number that's a bigger number over a smaller number. So it's definitely not any of these, right? 11 over 15, it's not that. What I'll now try to come up with is this is I'll get my little calculator, 495 divided by 15 is 33. So I'm looking for one of these to be 33. Well, I'm going to go ahead and figure out what is 11 times 55 divided by 15. Well, that's not right. So we'll go with another one. We'll go 90 times 55 divided by 150. I forgot to kill off my zeros. Oh, there's my 33. So that's going to make me go ahead and kind of believe. But I will check the last one just to be safe. And so 15, this shouldn't work because it's the inverse, right? But 15 times 55 divided by 9 is going to be too big. Yep, way too big. And so we can choose our answers for this pair. It is B and A, B, C, D, E. Nice, y'all. So again, variables in your answer choices, think about the smart numbers. Okay, let's look at a little bit more verbally one. We can often tell that it's verbal. This one is a bit of a hybrid between a verbal and a bit of logic, where we've got like must happen and must not happen. But I'd like for you to give it a try. Again, big verbal text at the start, but then you've got your question a little bit lower. Okay. How did this one feel? Difficulty wise, like scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the hardest, 1 being the easiest. How did this feel? Okay, yeah, it's pretty tricky. So just like with normal critical reasoning or verbal problems, I want to read the question first. I know that sounds weird because I won't know what the story is about, but I do want to have a sense of what they're asking me. And they're talking about something that must or must not happen in a location. And this language of inferred, right? So it can be inferred, meaning maybe it's not stated directly, but it's stated pretty close to directly, is what inferred means. Which of the following activities of a bird species must happen in order for them to call it a marifa? I don't know, marifa. And what things must not happen in that location for it to be considered a morifa, right? So let's look about, we've got this little story. They tell us, like, we're observing these birds in these morifa. We observe them during their annual breeding season, right? So clearly they're there during the annual breeding season. We also, this observation allows researchers to study not only courtship, so they've got courtship displays, right, of many different individuals, but also their social hierarchy. So something about social hierarchy. Moreover, since some species repeatedly return, so they keep coming back, they can study changes in group dynamics. So they must be here in groups. Right, whatever this morefa is, there's something about a social hierarchy, there's courtship, there's group dynamics. So they're in a crowd, like they come to a morefa to be together. The value of observing a morefa when the birds are not present, okay, so when they're not there, such as before their arrival or after they have abandoned the area to establish their nests, is only now becoming apparent. So it seems like it's a place where they gather and they're social, but then they leave to go somewhere else and establish their nests. So it would seem like what must happen in that location is some variety of social activities. And what definitely does not happen there would be nesting. And so this is how we get to our answers of, like, I know nothing about sleeping, like maybe they do. I don't know that they, occupy it multiple times, like that same location maybe. But I do know that they establish nests elsewhere. So that's definitely going to be something that doesn't happen. Do they gather together with members of their own species? Yes, right? Since some species repeatedly return to the same. Notice it says some, so they don't have to occupy the same location, but some return. So they definitely do have to gather. And then we don't know anything about territorial competition. We do know about courtship and breeding, but we don't know about competing with other species. So the correct answer on this one is going to be D and C. What must happen and what must not. All right, we have one more question. And so we're going to try this like logic-based question. And one of the things I'd like to highlight about logic-based, they don't always look like this, but they sometimes have this like table in the middle that gives you information. When you're thinking about a logic puzzle, what you want to focus on is this idea of using a process of elimination and thinking through things as opposed to necessarily finding the right answer. So process of elimination with your answer choices is going to be a really powerful technique for this logic. Notice it's like what could happen either day, what could happen neither day, and it's like a thing, it's a person that we're going to select or not select. Yeah. So again, let's give this one a shot and then we'll review. All right, here we go. Let's see. I've only gotten one answer in, and this one is tough, I will say. There's a lot to this, and so I want us to work through process of elimination. What's a little strange for this one is the like either day, neither day. So I kind of have to think a little bit about each day separately. So I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to get some of this out of the way so we've got some space. And let's look first at our rules. So we've got a 2-day festival where we're going to highlight these 10 writers. And so 5 writers each day. Great. Here we go. We got 4 writers already chosen. The majority of the writers, so here come the rules. The majority of the writers scheduled on one of the day will be writers whose primary written language is not English. So I need 3+ writers to have non-English on one of the 2 days. So if we look on day 1, I've got 2 English speakers or writers, right, in their language. And then on this day, I've got 2 English. So on at least one of these days, I need a primary writing language to be not English. So I can't have a person on English. They couldn't be on either day. So anyone who speaks English couldn't show up on either, right? Like I couldn't have them necessarily be on either day. So it's one thing to consider. For now, they kind of could be though. It says on the other day of the festival, let's see if this could be more limiting. On the other day of the festival, at least 4 of the writers have to be women. Okay, so let's see if we can find that. So I need 4 writers to be women. I've got 3 on board for day 1, so I could add a 4th. I've only got 2 for day 2, so day 2 cannot be my day that has a woman. So what I figured out, right, is that day 1 needs to be female, has to have another female writer. Day 2 needs to have another non-English writer in order for me to have this be the day. So I cannot put an English writer on this day. I cannot put a male writer on day 1. Okay, we got one more kind of blurb. It says neither day should have more than 2 writers from the same country. Well, I've already got 2 writers from France. So I can't have female. So this is female, not France. And then in this day, I've got 2 from the UK. So this one is not English, not UK. So I can't have a 3rd person. All right, so let's take a look. Let's see now. Let's do a little quick process of elimination. We'll do day 1 and day 2. And let's look at each answer choice and see who would be allowed. So for day 1, it has to be a female. So the only ones I can have for day 1 are A, C, D. Right? So the only ones that could be on day 1. But then let's go even further. So let me get my little letters here. Okay, so I can't have anyone from France. So I actually have to remove, right, this French from France. This person can't be. So I'll kind of actually like scribble that one out. So here are the only 2 people. I need female, not France. So female English, or not French, or sorry, not France. Female USA, female Japan, female France can't have. So I've got 2 that could be. On day 2, I need someone that's not English, not UK. So not English, not English, not English, not UK, not English, not UK, not English, not UK, not English, not UK. Now I decide. The first asked me for someone who could be on either day, meaning a check mark next to both. And so that's Murasaki. We'll choose C. Now I need someone who is not available for either day. And so the only person that's not available for either day is person B, Longfellow. And so Longfellow will be our green. Longfellow will be our neither day. The correct answers, C and B. So I know there's kind of a lot to all these pieces, right? So the thing you want to be focusing on when you practice these two parts, and you can get more action or more access to two-part analysis questions. We have question banks on our website that you can have access to once if you have like our integrated reasoning book. There's also access to these in any of the practice questions that come with both the GMAT Legacy and the GMAT Focus editions. And so make sure that you're taking some time to practice each type, from quant to verbal to more of this logic style, so that you can try and decide like which of these do I feel more or less comfortable with. And then in the meantime, when you're looking to try and figure out how to best spend your resources and time studying, please come check us out on our website. You can try out any session one of any of our full 9-week courses for free, both GMAT and GRE and EA. You can test them all out. You can find them by coming to manhattanprep.com, come to GMAT classes and free. You can also, I'll share a bigger screen share with you. You can always come to our website from our main site. You can log in, and again, that same kind of location where you can find all those free classes. You'll see that you can sign up for more free GMAT prep hours. We've got workshops, trial session ones of all of our classes starting over the summer. Plenty of other, again, workshops on GMAT versus EA or writing essays and so on. We even have trials in person in places like New York and Chicago. So come and check us out, right? Tons and tons. You can attend as many as you could possibly want. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out for our free prep hour this evening. It was a pleasure to get to have you halfway through the year 2023. Holy cow. I'll be coming back with you next month to do even more of the data insights type data like questions. So definitely come back and hang out with us then. Have a good one, y'all. Take care. Thanks so much.